Following their 3-0 loss to Arsenal in the first leg of their quarter-final tie, there was an air of inevitability around Real Madrid making a comeback in the second leg, not only from fans, but players and staff alike. Arsenal smashed all notion of that by beating Real Madrid again, this time at home by 2-1. And in this video, we're going to be discussing how they did it. We're going to be taking a look at the tactics involved that helped Mikel Arteta's side yet again propel themselves past the best club side the Champions League has ever seen. Going into this game, Arsenal knew that they would have had to have withstood some attacking threats, some real pressure, and some real dominating moments from Real Madrid. But the most impressive thing about their performance was the way that they were able to compartmentalise Madrid's attack and stop it at every given opportunity. They did it through this. This is Arsenal's standard 4-4-2 defensive setup. The shape that they have, you've got Marino and Odegaard up front, you've got Saka, Partey, Rice and Martinelli making that midfield four, and of course you've got the back four with Kivior coming in instead of Gabriel. Again, like I said, they compartmentalised the way that Madrid wanted to go forwards. That means splitting Rodrigo, Mbappe, Vinicius and Bellingham. And that might sound a little strange, but they all have different attributes and they all have different assets that give this Real Madrid side its real potency. Vinicius Jr. liking to be on this left-hand side, drifting infield when possible, but also going down the outside. Kylian Mbappe wanting to move over to this left as well, but also making sure he has darting runs past the defenders. Rodrigo really switching between the other front three, but also making sure that he's able to drift infield as well. And then you've got Jude Bellingham, the real X factor of the group, able to make his movements into the box for those headed crosses, but also making sure that he's able to pick up deep lying pockets of space to then drive with the ball. So all of them have different ways of approaching the game, and the way that Arsenal dealt with that is the most impressive aspect. As I said, they opted for their standard 4-4-2 defensive shape. But it was the compactness of the way that they played that was so very important, so very key. Saliba pushing that back line up really high. And then it was asking the likes of Declan Rice and Thomas Partey to really stop those progressive passes into the centre of the pitch. This is what Arsenal did so well. They prevented the centre of the pitch from being occupied by Real Madrid's attackers at every given opportunity. And this is because both Rice and Partey had really good roles in stopping these lines. And what I mean by that is that when Tchouaméni or Valverde got the ball, they'd want to look for passes into Mbappe or into Bellingham, whether they'd move into these different areas. And Arsenal stopped this pretty brilliantly through Rice intercepting, through Partey intercepting, or at the very least creating an immense amount of pressure. And what this ended up doing is it forced Madrid out into these wide areas. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So what have you got here? You've got Lucas Vazquez on the ball currently, but look at this Arsenal shape. It's so good. You've got your back four here. You've got your midfield four. Really well done. And of course, you've got your front two. Look at this defensive shape. Look how compact they are. Look how narrow they are. They have really shut off the centre of the pitch. And that has given Real Madrid the wide areas. But they are absolutely fine with that because Arsenal are fine with Real Madrid trying to cross to Mbappe. They're absolutely fine with it. They're even fine with them trying to cross to Bellingham because they back themselves in that number situation. It's going to be so difficult for Bellingham to get his head on the ball against the likes of a Saliba, against the likes of a Kivior, especially if Thomas Partey drops back or Declan Rice drops back to try and help with those defensive covers. It's so well done. And then when we move this on a little bit, we can see that if we take a look at this moment, look at where Bellingham's moved into. Instead of being in that central attacking midfield role, he's got that free role to move into different pockets. He's found a pocket for himself, and in this particular situation, he'd look to pick the ball up, either turn or look for a run from Mbappe past that defensive line. But instead of that, Lucas Vazquez tries to find Bellingham here, and Declan Rice reads it brilliantly. This happened time after time again, and it meant that Real Madrid were not able to access the centre of the pitch. Look at Rice here. It's so well done. He's just intercepting the ball ahead of Bellingham, and it means that Arsenal then turn the ball over. Once they turn the ball over, it's then about making sure they're able to utilise the space that Madrid have left in behind to then occupy that counter-attack, move forwards, and then take that space. It was continuously moving Madrid back towards their own goal, and that prevented that pressure from building against Arsenal. This was absolutely key in maintaining a foothold in the game, which allowed them to progress through the game very, very nicely. Let's take a look at another example. This is in the beginning of the second half, and what have you got here? You've still got Arsenal in their really good defensive shape. Madrid are obviously in possession. You've got your front two, you've got your midfield four, and of course, you've got your back four. Notice the positioning of these Real Madrid players as well. Remember what I said about Rodrigo wanting to drift in from that right-hand side, just to shuffle things about a little bit. It was the flexibility of this Madrid side that everyone thought would cause Arsenal problems. But in fact, what Arsenal did so well was, again, cut off the centre of the pitch, forcing Madrid out wide, and then making them play those crosses that they don't necessarily want to do. So you've got Tchouaméni on the ball currently, he's right here. Look at the positioning of Bellingham here as well. He's going to start to make a movement to try and make something happen. Watch as we move this on what ends up happening. So you've got it moving over to Valverde here, and look at Bellingham. He's then going to see this space here open up between Miles Lewis-Skelly and Kivior. This is a good movement from Bellingham. He's made a good darting run, which we're going to see in just a second. But just look what happens. This is key. Look at this. You've got Declan Rice following Jude Bellingham like he did throughout the entirety of the match, making sure that he didn't have a free run against this defence, that he wasn't able to take this space. And although the pass gets played around pretty brilliantly, and although it gets to Bellingham, you've got Declan Rice ready to make that tackle, ready to make that interception. Look at this. He's still following him. He ends up making a brilliant challenge, and it means that Madrid don't capitalise on this moment yet again. It's absolutely fantastic from Declan Rice, and again, another reason why Arsenal was so defensively resolute in this game. And it forced them to start playing crosses. Real Madrid played 43 crosses in this game, and I believe they only completed 7 of them. Now that is crazy when you think about it, but it also gives credit to Kivior and Saliba for their heading ability, but it also means that Madrid weren't happy with what they were doing generally. They weren't able to occupy the centre of the pitch, and that's because Arsenal completely locked it off. The pace from Madrid's passing was off, and that was down to the intensity that Arsenal had from the get-go. I mentioned Rice and Partey, and I've also mentioned Saliba and Kivior, but when you look at this Arsenal side, what you can also do is split them up into pairs that really start to help each other. For example, Kivior and Saliba. On occasion, you had Saliba come and help Kivior, and vice versa. On the right-hand side, you had Timber and Saka. When Vinicius Jr. came down the flank, you had Saka dropping back to help with Timber at every given opportunity. Odegaard and Merino. When Merino was pressing, Odegaard would follow. Partey and Rice. You're seeing where I'm going with this. The couples and the real duets throughout this side was there to see. Lewis-Skelly, who had a fantastic performance, winning 8 out of his 10 ground duels, was absolutely sensational, but again, helped out by Martinelli. And all of a sudden, these Arsenal players started to isolate and really put aside this Real Madrid side into different compartments, making sure that Rodrigo was isolated, making sure that Vinicius Jr. was isolated, forcing them to play crosses in, which Saliba and Kivior were absolutely perfectly fine with contending with. And then when you looked at the centre of the pitch, Bellingham would start to make runs, Rice would follow, Partey would follow. It was a real top team performance that allowed for Arsenal to really get a foothold in the match, and then that allowed them to go forwards. It was a proper display. One last example to look at. Now you've got Vinicius Jr. down the left hand side just about to receive the pass. This is absolutely fine for them. They're looking to try and progress, but again, notice what's happened. They've been forced down this channel. They don't want to go in field because they're afraid of losing the ball. The pressure from this Arsenal defence is too great. But what I think this really highlights so very well is the pairings that I mentioned. Look at Saka and Timber together. Look at Rice and Partey together. Of course, you've got Merino and you've got Odegaard. They're a bit split, but they're still more or less together. Look at Martinelli out on this far side, dropping back. This allows Lewis-Skelly to stay a little bit narrow. It's so good. You've obviously got the centre-back pairings. It just allows Arsenal to get a bit more flexibility while also having defensive security when they're having to go out and contest with the likes of Vinicius Jr., with the likes of Mbappe, Bellingham, you name it. They did such a good job, and in this particular example, you've got Saka doubling up with Vinicius Jr., stopping him from moving in field, forcing Vinicius Jr. down this left-hand side, and Timber is able to make the block, forcing another corner, but they're absolutely fine with defending against that. It's really, really well done for Arsenal. I cannot state that any further. Super, super performance. Although so far we focused on Arsenal's great defensive capability, they actually offered a lot going forwards, scoring 2 goals in this game. We're going to be taking a look at the first one right now, but we will look at the second a moment later. When we take a look at this though, what you've got to begin with is a long ball over towards Merino and Saka. Here, you've got Rudiger and Fran Garcia looking to contest. Now, a really interesting thing to begin with is the fact that Fran Garcia and Rudiger both go for the same ball. It actually gets flicked on by Merino really, really well. I mean, for a player who's not a centre forward, he really gets his head on things and he makes himself a nuisance. He's super, super good. But it gets over towards Saka in acres of space. Now, that's not really the main thing to take stock of here. The main thing to take stock of is Rudiger and Fran Garcia, because when the ball goes down towards Saka, you have Rudiger coming out to contest instead of the left back. Note that, because that's really important. Saka actually capitalises on that a little bit later. We of course know that Saka scores the goal, but it gets recycled out towards Odegaard once Rudiger pressures Saka. Once that happens, what you're going to see is Saka making a movement towards the centre of the box. Now remember the role that Merino plays. Merino likes to drop deep into the midfield to allow for other players to then move forwards. You've got the likes of Martinelli making darting runs, Saka making darting runs past this defensive line, and it's all about making sure that Merino is able to drop into those pockets to help facilitate that attack going forwards. Odegaard tries to recycle the ball round, but just for a moment, take stock of where Rudiger and Saka are, because that's really important. As we forward this on, what you're going to see is the ball go out towards Declan Rice in the centre of the pitch. He gets pressured really, really well, still keeping your eye on Saka and Rudiger, really important. Fran Garcia's here as well. As this moves on just a touch, what you're going to see is just behind Rudiger, Fran Garcia is trying to make a movement to become the left back once more, just swapping positions. Now this is really important because I'm not necessarily sure that Rudiger gets a shout or realises that this has happened. There's the space between the two defenders, the centre back and Fran Garcia once he moves round. Of course, Rudiger's moving into that position. As the ball gets a bit of interplay between Odegaard and Rice, he's going to pass it over towards Merino, who ends up dropping. This is again to facilitate those forward-thinking runs from the two Arsenal wingers. Really well done by Odegaard, but now look at what you've got here. You've got Rudiger and you've got Fran Garcia back in their normal original positions, but Bukayo Saka has made an inside run between the two centre-backs. Now, I'm not necessarily sure that the Madrid players are certain as to who is picking Saka up, because when this movement gets made and Merino picks up the ball to play a vertical pass into Saka, who makes a brilliant run into the box, Rudiger doesn't follow the run, and I'm not sure whether that's on him or whether he believes that Fran Garcia should have been following him in the first place, and he gets caught out because the positions have already been switched. Nevertheless, it is a fantastic movement from Saka, who makes a brilliant run and ends up chipping Courtois pretty brilliantly. Now, if you don't know, Saka ended up missing a penalty in the early stages of this game, so the fact that he's able to compose himself, still chip Courtois in such a monumental match, only goes to show the mentality that he has and the sheer quality that this young star is. He is absolutely sensational, he is brilliant, and he puts Arsenal 1 goal to the good. Now, Madrid get a goal back through an Arsenal mistake, but I want to focus on Arsenal's second, because the result of this defensive display is the goal. And I think this is a perfect example of what went wrong for Madrid, but also what went right for Arsenal. Notice what's going on here. You've got your back four ready to defend, you've got your midfield too, and of course, you've got your front four, or I suppose if you would like, you've got your midfield four and your front two. Still really well defensively solid. Look how tight and compact they are. It's so good. But again, down the right hand side, you've got them looking to whip a cross in. You've got them looking to try and play a cross into this box, but it gets dealt with yet again by Kivior, who had an absolutely sensational performance. It ends up coming out towards the likes of Mikel Merino, and then what have you got? Look at Martinelli here. Look at him trying to take this space. Look how high these Real Madrid players are as well, by the way. This is your last line of defence, and you've got Martinelli ready to breach that, in an instant. It's so well done. What's also really important is Martinelli's run. He's normally a right winger, but he's making a run from right to left, and he's doing that for one simple reason. He's doing that to enable Merino to play a vertical pass towards Martinelli's path. This gives Merino a better opportunity to play a good pass, but also it simplifies the ball for him. The fact that it simplifies the pass means that he's able to play it earlier. In playing it earlier, it gives Martinelli the best possible opportunity to have his 1v1 duel with Fran Garcia. He blitzes Garcia in pretty spectacular fashion, going past him like he's not there. It then gives him a 1v1 with Courtois, and we know how that ends. It ends up with Martinelli scoring pretty brilliantly. It's a fantastic finish, and I've got to say, it's a fantastic performance from Arsenal. A thoroughly deserved victory. They outplayed, they outclassed, they outthought Madrid in nearly every single instance and run away 5-1 on aggregate. Worthy winners. It was a top performance yet again. But of course, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. What did you make of the game? What did you make of Arsenal? And how do you rate Arsenal's chances in the Champions League? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.